Have you ever heard of a game called Disney's Extreme Skate Adventure? If not, that's okay. It's basically just Tony Hawk Pro Skater with Disney characters slapped on top. I used to play this all the time as a kid, and I recently had some fun revisiting it. I have a lot of nostalgia for this game, but I was surprised that I didn't remember how blatant the in-game advertisements were. It was actually jarring, but also kinda hilarious. To begin, let's start with some background. For those of you who might not be familiar with this hidden gem, Disney's Extreme Skate Adventure is a skateboarding game that was released in 2003 for the GameCube, PlayStation 2, and Xbox. There was also a Game Boy version, but I've never played it, and judging by that gameplay, I don't think I want to. Developed by Toys for Bob and published by Activision, this game actually uses the same engine as Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 4, so I can't be too harsh on the fact that it's a Tony Hawk ripoff with licensed characters. Basically, the controls are watered down, so tricks are easier to perform since this game is mainly targeted towards kids, but there's actually an option in the menu to enable pro controls to make it more similar to Tony Hawk, which is pretty cool. This game's main draw is that you can skateboard as Disney characters from Toy Story, The Lion King, and Tarzan. In adventure mode, you have to play as these characters in their own worlds and complete missions just like in Tony Hawk, talking to side characters, and even collecting the letters in Skate. They're not even trying to hide it at this point, like why not spell a different word instead? Anyways, I mainly only played as the Toy Story characters because that's my favorite franchise out of this selection, and I think their stages are much more interesting than The Lion King or Tarzan's. You can also play as a regular kid skater, exploring a hub world called Ollywood that lets you travel between different themed worlds based on these Disney properties. You can choose from one of the pre-made kid characters, or you can customize your own like all the other Tony Hawk games. Fun fact, the children that you can play as in this game were actually real kids who won a skateboarding contest to be in the game. Literally, the opening cutscene of this game is footage from the contest that they held and shows all the kids trying out to be in the game. I loved this game as a kid. This was the only Tony Hawk type game I owned, so I played it all the time and I had nothing to compare it to. That being said, it is pretty janky and the movie tie-in game feels like super early 2000s. I feel like they don't really make games like this anymore. Like, sure, we still have games that use these huge licensed characters, but it seems like most of them are now just like Smash Bros. Clones, and they're not the same as these older games. Disney's Extreme Skate Adventure is the kind of game that you'd see on the shelves at Blockbuster, rent it for a weekend, and have a blast before returning it. These low-budget, licensed IP games and the movie tie-in games were actually pretty fun sometimes, even though they were clearly not as polished as what we expect today. They had a certain charm to them. These days, it's hard to find these kinds of games. The industry has shifted towards massive, high-budget projects or indie games with a distinct vision. But those fun little mid-tier licensed games that were like just good enough to entertain you for a few days, like you can't find those anymore. I want to take a second to highlight my personal favorite part of this game, the soundtrack. It might just be the best soundtrack in any game I've ever played. Like, seriously, sometimes when I play Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, I just turn off the in-game music and play the soundtrack instead. It's that good. The game features tracks from Smash Mouth, Simple Plan, Real Big Fish, and Alistair, creating this perfect early 2000s punk vibe. Obviously, all the Tony Hawk games have great music. I don't know what it is about this soundtrack, but something about it really stands out to me. I wish I could play the music on this video, but obviously I can't, so go check it out on Spotify. Here's the playlist I always use. Now, before we get into the crazy advertising in this game, we have to acknowledge that advertising in video games is nothing new. Games have been embedding ads for decades, from the subtle to the downright shameless. A recent example is in Death Stranding, where you can find Monster energy drinks placed in the many shelters that Sam Porter Bridges rests at. Or the insanely blatant ad for Norman Reedus' TV show on the shower in the same exact shelters. Like, that took me out of the game so hard when I saw that for the first time. Another good example would be Crazy Taxi, where you're racing to get passengers to real-life locations like Pizza Hut and KFC. Even the Tony Hawk games are full of advertising, but mostly in the form of like clothing brands to dress your character in and random billboards around the stages. So what advertising does Disney's Extreme Skate Adventure push upon you? I honestly completely forgot about this until I revisited the game. In the hub world, Ollywood, you skate around a normal-looking town containing a grocery store, skate park, movie theater, just like an overall typical urban skating environment, similar to the Tony Hawk games. And right in the middle of this town, what do you see? A straight up McDonald's restaurant. I'm talking the sign, the logo, the drive-thru. It's not subtle in the slightest. It's actually hilarious how bold they are with it, considering McDonald's is probably the one brand that doesn't even need advertising in the first place. And if you think that's just a quirky little Easter egg, think again. One of the main missions on this map requires you to deliver 4 McDonald's orders to different people around the town. That's right, you're literally working for McDonald's as a part of the game's core objectives. You first have to deliver a McDouble, then a medium order of fries. After that, you have to deliver a carton of milk for some reason to a girl in a movie theater. Milk? Why wouldn't it be like soda? I don't know, 2003 was a wild time, I guess. Finally, you have to deliver a baked apple pie to the sailor guy. And the best part, the reward for completing this mission... Oh, no way. No way. You literally get Ronald McDonald's iconic clown shoes, complete with the red striped socks. Of course, I immediately had to put these on my own custom skater. Sure, advertising in sports games isn't that off-brand, but you never had to be a delivery boy for McDonald's in any of those games. And if you thought that was the only ad, you'd be wrong. There's another huge advertisement in this stage, and it's even more bizarre than McDonald's. Nokia phones. You have to help Mr. Nokia himself by skating around to find 4 new ringtones for his phone. Each person you talk to makes you stand there and listen to their ringtone while they're bobbing their head.
I got some new ringtones for my phone. Check it out,
And once you gather all 4 ringtones, you're treated to a synchronized dance to a Nokia ringtone.
Oh yeah, you did it, kid! Oh, listen to this sweet, sweet music.
Oh my god, what is that? This dance goes on way too long, and it's like the only cutscene in the entire game, making it feel so out of place. I think I preferred delivering that sailor a baked apple pie. What is this? Advertising in video games is nothing new, but for some reason, Disney's Extreme Skate Adventure just feels so out of place. The McDonald's and the Nokia missions are so over the top that they almost feel like a parody, but they're also a reminder of how games from this era were apparently unafraid to mix brands with gameplay to this extent. I don't think you would ever see something like this in a current game, no matter how much McDonald's would pay them for it. Despite all the jankiness and the blatant ads, this game holds a special place in my heart. There's something undeniably fun about skating around as Buzz Lightyear, pulling off sick tricks and exploring Andy's room while shredding rails. Sure, it might just be an elongated ad to get you to buy a Happy Meal, but it's also a charming and enjoyable experience that's worth revisiting. Let me know in the comments if you can think of any other games with crazy ads like this, and if you've actually ever played or heard of this game before. It can't be just me. Thanks for watching.